When historians look for the birthplaces of American sport, they rarely point to a single field or a single moment. Instead, they map a mosaic. Immigrant neighborhoods, factory yards, YMCA gymnasia, and college quads. The games people played in 18th and 19th century America were not yet sports in the modern sense. They were communal rituals, ways to prove strength, to settle local bragging rights, to mark seasons. Imagine a New England town in 1850. After a long week of work, men gather on a dusty green. They throw a ball, they run for a flag, they lift one another in hoots of laughter. Across the ocean, children played rounders or cricket. On Native American land, boys ran long distances in ritual contests. These traditions collided again, and negotiated new rules. Formalization, the moment communities agreed on a rule book, is what transformed rough play into organized competition. Baseball is the emblematic example. By mid-19th century, a patchwork of local versions existed. The moment those variants congealed into rules that teams could use to travel, challenge one another, and create standings, is the moment baseball stopped being just a pastime and started becoming an institution. That institution rode two infrastructural waves: railroads, which allowed teams to tour across states, and print media, which created narratives, box scores, and heroes. Baseball was not just a game. It became a way for cities to compete for prestige, for newspapers to sell ink, and for a growing industrial workforce to find identity. Football's genesis similarly depends on a university setting. Rules evolved out of rugby and soccer, and college campuses, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, produced a spectacle that mixed athletic contest with pageantry. Football's rituals, marching bands, rivalry pranks, homecoming, fused athletics to civic identity. Even as professional leagues later appropriated these spectacles, the college culture has continuously fed emotion and talent into the larger system. Basketball's origin is famous for its simplicity: a gym teacher, a peach basket, 13 players, and a need to move children indoors in winter. What began as exercise became adaptable and, crucially, portable. Basketball could thrive in a city block, in a church gym, on courts with faded paint. Its quick pace and scoring frequency made it ideal for radio and later television. The elements that made basketball a playground game, spontaneity, improvisation, space for individual creativity, became key ingredients of a cultural export. The initial arc is plain: simple communal games. When standardized and moved into institutions, schools, newspapers, rail networks, scale into something far larger. Those larger things would later attract money, fans, and politics. If rules let you bet on outcomes and broadcast them reliably, you create an economic product. And the rise of that product is what changes the rest. To talk about American sports history without baseball is like trying to tell a history of architecture without bricks. Baseball gave America narrative forms: pennant races, summer series, the long arc of a 9-inning drama. It carried a mythology of ordinary heroes, factory workers, immigrant kids, who could rise to national attention. The game fit the nation's rhythm: days of labor and long summer afternoons. The cadence of innings matched the cadence of seasons. But baseball's place was neither purely sentimental nor purely professional. From its early professionalization, disputes flared about labor, salaries, and racial exclusions. Owners set schedules and prices. Players, at first transient and poorly paid, slowly organized into more stable professions. The sport also mirrored the nation's racial structure. Segregation created Negro leagues that developed extraordinary talent in parallel to white leagues. The Negro leagues were themselves complex institutions, rich in talent, creative play, and community prestige, but structurally marginalized. When Jackie Robinson stepped onto Ebbets Field in 1947, it was not merely an athletic debut. It was a political act. Robinson's integration was a test case. Would American institutions make space for inclusion, or would prejudice close ranks? The answer was chaotic. Integration forced baseball to confront its fans, its owners, and its ideals.
Robinson's courage cracked a line that would, slow and unevenly, push professional sports toward racial plurality. Baseball's golden age coincided with America's industrial supremacy. The sport invested in economic structures, stadium building, radio and TV rights, jersey licensing, and the dream of long careers. But it also faced modern dilemmas: declining attendance in certain eras, competition from other entertainment forms, and debates about pacing and rules that play to the TV audience. The lesson: sports are not static repositories of tradition. They evolve with technology and economy. Baseball gave Americans myths of continuity. It also revealed the country's fragility when it came to inclusion and labor. College football entrenched ritual. Saturday afternoons were not merely entertainment, they were civic events where rivalries could define town relationships. The combination of pageantry and violence on field made college football a potent cultural force. Professional football's ascendance came through a different mechanism: consolidation and broadcasting. The NFL's success depended on standardization, an aggressive approach to television rights, and the creation of a single nationally consumable narrative. The Super Bowl, first broadcast in 1967, became the genre's crowning ritual. It is both championship and national holiday, a shared spectacle that condenses decades of rivalry into 2 hours of consumption. The halftime show, the commercials, the dramatic close. The Super Bowl is a media factory. But despite its entertainment value, football has always been structurally violent. Its rules favor collision and deliberate physical contact, and its cultural mythology prizes toughness. These facts have come into sharp focus with science revealing the long-term neurological toll of repeated head impacts. The story of football in the late 19th and early 21st century becomes a story of trade-offs. How much spectacle does a society buy at the expense of player health? How does the industry reconcile the appetite for heroic contact plays with the duty of care for athletes? Football's economic architecture further complicates matters. The NFL's revenue model, massive broadcasting rights, licensing, ticket sales, created fortunes for owners and lucrative careers for top players. But it also produced conflicts, labor disputes, questions about pension and medical care for retired players, and wider debates about access to the game at youth levels. The inexorable commercialization of football turned what was once a campus ritual into a national institution that transmits values and revenue around the world.
Basketball's ascent is the story of adaptability. Created to be played indoors, it was inherently urban-friendly. Its fast pace, high scoring, and the artistry of individual play made it ideal for broadcast and cultural translation. The NBA began as a modest pro league, but several transformations made it global. Television exposure, the rise of superstars, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and then the cultural explosion of Michael Jordan in the 1980s and 1990s. Jordan, more than a player, became a brand, a fashion vector, and an icon whose image walked off the court onto shoes, billboards, and film. The NBA's embrace of global markets, especially in Europe and China, turned teams into international franchises and players into transnational stars. Basketball also proved a powerful social engine in urban communities. Inner-city courts produced some of America's most influential athletes, whose narratives often involved escape from poverty, local mentorship, and cultural expression. The sport's aesthetics, improvisation, showmanship, and swagger also intersected with music, fashion, and identity politics. Yet basketball's commercialization produced its own tensions. Franchise relocations, salary cap maneuvers, and superstar empowerment sometimes clash with fans' sense of community loyalty. And, like other sports, basketball has become a platform for political expression. From athletes kneeling during anthems to campaigns around voting rights and criminal justice, these moments show the sport's dual role as entertainment and civic amplifier. Hockey and soccer provide counterpoints. Hockey, with its northern geography and fast, cold aesthetic,
found strength in Canada and the northern United States. The NHL's expansion in the 20th century brought hockey into U.S. markets, but the sport often remains regional, associated with climates and cultures that prize speed and contact. Soccer took longer to transform in the U.S. For decades, it was a niche youth sport and an immigrant game. The arrival of Major League Soccer in the 1990s and the rise of women's soccer, especially the U.S. women's national team, shifted perceptions. Soccer's global market value, international player migration, and the growth of fan culture show a sport that can reinvent itself in American eyes. The U.S. women's team's dominance created one of the clearest examples of both sporting excellence and the struggle for equity, pay, exposure, and respect. Both sports highlight an important point about American sport. It is not monolithic. Different geographies, immigrant populations, and institutions create different paths for sports to grow. And both hockey and soccer suggest that globalization can bring new patterns of fandom and economics to the national landscape. If Jackie Robinson's breakthrough tested the nation's racial conscience, Title IX reshaped its gendered structures. Passed in 1972, Title IX required gender equity in any educational program receiving federal funds. The law's implementation in athletics had seismic effects. Colleges and high schools expanded women's sports programs, creating pipelines of female athletes who would later become professionals, coaches, and role models. The impact was multifaceted. On the one hand, Title IX empowered millions of girls with access to team sports, scholarships, and developmental infrastructure. On the other hand, the legal battles and periodic backlash, often couched in debates about budget trade-offs, revealed the political and economic friction of redistributing institutional resources. The arrival of the U.S. women's national soccer team is a case study. Elite women athletes demanded parity, ran into complicated market logics, TV audiences, sponsorship dollars, and advertiser assumptions. The struggle pushed broader cultural conversations about worth, spectacle, and fairness. Title IX didn't settle those debates, it started them.
Sports' modern economics are built on a simple logic. Predictable contests plus mass audience equals monetizable content. The arrival of radio and then television turned live sport into a scheduling commodity. Networks bid for rights, owners consolidated assets, and leagues became orchestrators of broadcast-friendly product. Television changed game design. Breaks for commercials lengthened games. Primetime slots favor high-scoring, fast-paced action. Networks developed narratives, color commentators, instant replays, and highlight reels that made every contest a serialized drama. Rights deals ballooned, feeding owners, franchises, and superstar salaries. Advertising transformed sporting events into retail opportunities. Halftime shows, sponsored uniforms, and global merchandise. This money machine also produces moral dilemmas. Higher stakes incentivize performance enhancement and shady dealings. The Armstrong scandal, the doping revelations in cycling and track, and the long shadow of performance-enhancing substances in various sports reveal the constant temptation to trade ethics for results. Gambling markets add another layer of pressure and risk. The commercialization model shapes what fans see and what athletes deliver. It also raises structural questions about access and ownership. Whose stadiums are public goods? Who profits when a team relocates? How much control should leagues exert over player movement? These debates are not purely academic. They shape urban redevelopment, labor policy, and the cultural fabric of cities. No conversation about U.S. sport is complete without the collegiate system. American colleges create a unique pipeline. They train, showcase, and market athletes while remaining ostensibly educational institutions. The result is tension.
For decades, the NCAA enforced amateurism. Student athletes could not be paid beyond scholarships and modest benefits. But the economic reality, billion-dollar broadcast contracts for March Madness, stadium sponsorships, and global merchandise flows, created a glaring paradox. Universities profit massively from unpaid labor. In the 21st century, that paradox reached a tipping point. Legal challenges and public pressure led to reforms allowing athletes to monetize their name, image, and likeness, or NIL. With NIL, athletes could sign endorsements, monetize social media, and build personal brands, practices long enjoyed by professionals. But NIL also introduced stratification. Top programs and top players benefit disproportionately, widening divides between sports, schools, and athletes. We must also note that the collegiate model can be a ladder for upward mobility. Scholarships open doors for low-income students, yet the uneven treatment of athletes in medical care, graduation support, and post-career opportunities raise ethical questions. The debate touches on labor law, educational mission, and cultural values. Is college sport a form of civic education, or is it an entertainment industry dressed in academic robes? The spectacle of sport often obscures a grim counterpoint: bodily harm. The concussion crisis in football and head injuries across contact sports forced public reckoning. Studies connecting repeated head trauma to chronic traumatic encephalopathy in former athletes provoked lawsuits, policy changes, and technological shifts. These discoveries forced leagues and institutions to act. Improved concussion protocols, helmet redesigns, rule changes to limit dangerous contact, and enormous settlements to support affected former players. Yet science advances slowly, and the human toll is irreversible for some. The health conversation is broader than brains. Orthopedic injuries, chronic pain, mental health challenges, and the pressures of elite training affect athletes across levels. When combined with commercialization that incentivizes playing through pain, the industry raises ethical responsibilities. How should leagues compensate for long-term harm? What obligations exist to retired athletes? The answers will shape the sport's moral economy.
Athletes have long been cultural leaders. Jackie Robinson, Muhammad Ali, and later figures like Tommy Smith and John Carlos literally used podiums and headlines to challenge power. In recent times, Colin Kaepernick's kneeling during the national anthem and the broader athlete responses to police violence mark a continuation of a tradition. Athletes deploy their platforms to shape public discourse. The backlash to athlete activism is instructive. Some see sports as a refuge from politics. Others see silence as complicity. Athletes operate in a contested space. Contractual obligations, brand deals, and league policies can punish or reward political speech. Yet the evidence suggests athlete activism resonates. Voter mobilization campaigns led by athletes, celebrity endorsements of causes, and the global platform afforded by social media amplify messages in ways previous generations could not imagine. Sport has always been political in practice. The current debates are about transparency and power. Who funds leagues? Who censors voices? How much responsibility do athletes owe to fans versus causes? The answers are unsettled, and that unsettledness is itself part of the history. The last few decades have added two accelerants: global markets and digital platforms. Sports cross borders effortlessly now. Leagues court fans abroad, players become international commodities. The NBA sells jerseys in Shenzhen, while MLS signs international stars to boost exposure. Technology amplifies. Streaming platforms fragment viewership, but also open opportunities. Niche sports find global audiences. Fantasy sports and betting apps multiply engagement. Social platforms let athletes build brands independent of league narratives.
Esports, competitive video gaming, reimagines conceptions of athleticism and draws young global audiences. All this means the old models, ticket sales and linear broadcast, are no longer sufficient. Leagues pivot toward multi-platform strategies, micro-subscriptions, and global tours. Cities that once thrived on local fandom now compete on an international stage. Globalization thus offers growth, but also homogenization. The same superstar aesthetics circulate everywhere, sometimes erasing local particularities. Where have the incentives been greatest to cheat? Where rewards are massive, some actors will seek unfair advantage. From performance-enhancing drugs to match fixing, sports ethical dilemmas reflect the broader temptations of modern capitalism. Maximize output, circumvent rules. Sports have developed anti-doping agencies, surveillance, and penalties, yet the arms race between detection and evasion persists. Ethical reform requires not only policing, but structural change. How to recalibrate incentives so that fairness is rewarded and short-term gain less tempting. We arrive at the present as a fork. The trajectories are multiple, not predetermined. Consider 4 plausible directions. Acceleration of commercial spectacle. More money, more global reach, more technological immersion. Stadiums become entertainment complexes, athletes become brands, fan attention fragments into micro-communities. This path increases revenues, but risks alienating traditional fan bases and exacerbating inequities. Regulated reform for welfare. Stronger labor protections, healthcare guarantees, standardized pensions, and education about post-career planning. This path prioritizes human dignity over profit margins and may require public pressure, legislation, and new league norms. Redistribution and democratic access, community investment in youth sports, equitable funding for women's and minority programs, and public control over venue developments. This path asks society to treat sport as a public good with social returns beyond profits. Technological shift and diversification. Esports, VR experiences, and blockchain-based fan ownership models alter ownership and participation. Sport becomes more interactive and participatory, with fans having new roles in governance and narratives. Reality will likely combine elements of all 4. The core question is normative. Do we want sport primarily as profit or as shared cultural capital? The answer will shape public policy, corporate strategy, and fan activism.